Okay guys, let's get started. So what I'm doing now is I already have the elastic band around my head, and I'm just taking my needle and my thread and I'm sewing from one side of my head and working my way around to the other portion. As you can see, I'm not pulling on the lace closure because then you're going to make it to where the lace closure is going to slip back. I'm just leaving it in place and neatly sewing from one end to the other, and just assuring while I'm sewing that the lace closure is nice and flat. You don't want to leave any spaces in between the thread because then it'll cause your lace to look bulky. So I'm fixing it as I'm sewing to make sure that I have it nice and flat. In addition to that, you'll want to make sure that the parting of your lace closure where you want to have your part is nicely aligned with your natural parting, so that way you can have the most realistic part that you can possibly have. If you don't line it up right, then the lace will be kind of dark. So when you line it up with your natural part, it looks more natural because you can actually see your scalp through the lace, which is the whole meaning of having a lace closure. So now I've completed my sewing, and I'm going to go ahead and secure my thread with a knot, and I'm going to prepare to move on to the next step. So now I have my my net on because I don't like to sew the weave onto my hair. I try to protect my hair as much as possible, so I just went ahead and sewed the net on, and I'll show you guys what it looks like. Like that. I just sewed it on the perimeter and then took the elastic band and just put it right on top of there, because I'm going to take my first track and I'm going to sew it onto the elastic band here, and then I'll take my second track and sew it here, so it doesn't need to be attached to your head. Okay, so just wanted to show you guys what that looks like, and I'm going to go ahead and get started on sewing. I'm going to sew a track and then I'll just come back and record a few segments of that so you guys can see some of that footage. Okay, so I have the first track sewn onto the elastic band, so that way you guys can see exactly what it looks like. You see the band still moves and the track is just sewn onto there, the first track. So then, just as I would do when I was making a wig, I'm going to take the shortest length and I'm going to sew it right here, from here to here. And the reason why I'm doing that is because if this lace closure gets a little loose or it starts to grow out a little bit, I can always take it and adjust it. So that way I always have it to where it looks like it's right there on my hairline and doesn't start to slide back. Because sometimes, well, all the time, when your weave starts to, or your hair starts to grow, the weave will slip back. So with this method, not only does it help your lace closure to stay down and look more realistic and minimize any of the bulkiness, it also helps to where if your weave gets a little bit older, which I only leave my weaves in for about a month, and then I take them out and I do them over, or I use different hair and I switch up. Just like this weave with the same hair, I had it in for 2 weeks and I decided I didn't want the middle part anymore, so now I'm switching it to the side. So you can just take it and pull it up like that without it being connected to your head, so that also helps as well. So I'm going to continue to sew and I'll come back in just a minute. Now I'm going to show you guys the second layer that I have on top of the elastic band, and it probably doesn't, I'm sure it doesn't look perfect because I don't have eyes behind the back of my head. So I'm going to show you guys exactly what it looks like now. That's the second layer, and I just took it and sewed that onto the top portion of the elastic band, and you can see that it's still not attached to my head yet. So now I'm going to start sewing the tracks onto my net, and this is when I'll build from there. So now I've reached to the top of my lace closure where I'm sewing the tracks around the perimeter of the lace closure. So as you're sewing your tracks, you're just going to go back and forth, use the back and forth method, and assure that you do not sew any of your tracks to the actual elastic band. You're just going to end each weft right before the elastic band starts, because you're going to go back later on, you'll see in the video, where I'm actually going to sew more hair to the elastic band in order to blend it all together. So now that I have the hair sewn around my lace closure, I'm just going to end the track, tie the knot, and cut the weft.
these are the final steps that you're going to take. I am taking the shortest length of the hair, and just as though you were making a wig, I'm going to take this thread as I did with the back of my elastic band, and I'm going to sew my track onto the very tip of the elastic band from the portion where the lace closure starts all the way until the back where I laid those other tracks onto the elastic band. And there's going to be 2 layers of this, one at the top portion of the elastic band and one at the bottom portion of the elastic band. So you're going to do both of these, and then I'm just going to simply repeat these steps on the opposite side, and this is going to help me to eliminate revealing the elastic band and camouflage everything and blend it all together. And as I'm sewing, I'm still not attaching any of the tracks that are on the elastic band to my head. They are going to remain only sewed onto the elastic band, so that way I can adjust it as the weave gets older, because if it is attached to my head, I'm not going to be able to adjust it because all the tracks will be sewed down. But if they're only sewed down to the elastic band, the hair is free for me to maneuver and move around if I need it. Now it's okay for me to go ahead and unbraid the braids that are in the lace closure and make sure I comb the hair out and prepare my hair so that way I can get ready for styling. The closure was already previously cut and styled when I had my middle part, so I'm not going to do any changes in this area. I'm just going to leave everything the same and do a little bit of wand curls. Ready for styling.